listening to the Rejoice Podcast, leading all generations of our neighbors and nations to follow Jesus.
Welcome to the Rejoice Podcast. I am your host, Daniel Buttram, alongside Pastor Casey Carricker. Thank you so much for joining us today. On this episode, we have former corporal in the United States Marine Corps, Brad C. Fite. Brad is the author of the book Life After Death, a survivor story. Brad was severely injured from a roadside bomb attack in Afghanistan in 2010. Brad is the recipient of the Purple Heart and a champion for PTSD recovery. And we are honored and thankful to have him here with us today. Brad, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, Brad, right out of the gate, we just tell us a little bit about your family, because I know you like to brag on your family any chance you get.
I do have an amazing wife, Amy, and I have a 18-month-old son, Brixton, and they are just absolutely an amazing blessing. I love being able to do life with those two. It's a great joy. It's a great pleasure.
Well, it's great to have you, as Daniel already mentioned. In the pre-show, we kind of mentioned, obviously, your experience in the military, serving the Marines, writing this book about your story. But let's start way back. Think about the first time you were really sure, like, I need to serve our country, serve the world by serving in the military. How did that happen? Where were you at?
Well, I grew up in a small town outside of Detroit, and I was always kind of a outsider looking in. Was always kind of on this relentless pursuit of fitting in and always seemed to fall just short. And I remember sitting in my dad's classroom. My dad was a teacher at my high school, and my mom was the secretary of my high school. And I remember sitting in homeroom with my dad, and my mom comes running down and busting the door and says, "Bob, turn on the TV, we're getting attacked." And my dad flips on the news, and we're sitting there and we're watching the attacks on the Twin Tower. And I remember that being kind of my first look into the outside world. And I grew up very sheltered in the environment in which I grew up. It was very bubble-esque. And we didn't get a lot of views of what was really going on outside of this and beyond our little community. And I remember seeing this and realizing what's out there. And I had this vision of myself, and my dad always had this poster hung up in his classroom. He was an American history guy, and he had this poster of this old school World War II poster. Of one side of the guy's face was a man, and the other side was this shining, brilliant, just awesome Marine. And it was a Marine recruiting poster, and I looked at that and always kind of thought that was just the pinnacle of cool. And now that this had just happened, I went up to my dad afterwards and I said, "Dad, I want to do something about this. I want to join the Marines." And he said, "Awesome. That's so admirable. That's an honorable career choice." He said, "How about we do the Air Force?" And to appease my parents' wishes of me getting a college degree and pursuing that, I chose to go with the Air Force. Went to college to get my degree, and I wanted to be a fighter pilot in the Air Force. Well, about a year and a half into college, in my pursuit of this Air Force dream, I had gotten involved with fighting, mixed martial arts. It wasn't huge yet. UFC wasn't all its glory that it is now. It was kind of a new thing, and it was actually kind of a taboo thing back then. It wasn't quite what it is now. But I had gotten into that, and I had gotten offered a fight in downtown Detroit. And the fight team that I was working with, Detroit Mixed Martial Arts, said, "Hey, this fight just opened up. We really need a fighter to step in at this lightweight." Well, I wasn't a lightweight, so I needed to drop about 30 pounds real fast. And so I decided, you know what, I can do this. I was living at the time in Washington, D.C., working for a congressman there. Flew back home, lost a whole bunch of weight, didn't really train because all I wanted to do was lose weight. Showed up the night of the fight, and the night did not go in my favor. I had the left side of my face smashed in and woke up in the hospital and facial reconstruction surgery later. Made the left side of my face out of titanium. And ended up getting a discharge out of the Air Force because I couldn't fly anymore due to all the metal in my face. And went to the Marine Corps recruiter and didn't really tell my parents, kind of just snuck out and went to the Marine Corps recruiter and said, hey, listen, I'm going to be honest with you. Here's the deal. Here's my college credits. By the way, left side of my face is titanium. Was in a cage fight and didn't really go well. And there you have it. And he said, okay, well, can you see? Yeah, I can see quite well. He said, all right, sign here. You're in. And signed up, went through all the stuff, and then went to boot camp, Parris Island, South Carolina. And from the inception of my career as a United States Marine, I knew that it was exactly what I was built for and made for, and what I wanted to do and what I wanted to spend the rest of my life doing.
Well, we want to, first of all, say thanks for serving our country and serving not only the freedom of our own country, but the freedom of the world as well. And let's fast forward then a little bit. You, as typical a Marine in a combat situation, here you are. You're going to find yourself in a situation that you were trained for, but probably didn't ever imagine that you'd find yourself in. This battle, you were given a task, a responsibility, and kind of put us in this situation of the day that really changed the scenario, the story of your life, just in a matter of moments.
Sure. So I was in on July 20th, 2010, I was in Marja, Afghanistan. Marja was a pivotal battle in the war on terror, and especially Afghanistan. And on this day specifically, my team was tasked with a personal security operation. Marja was preparing for a democratic election, and one of the things that we were trying to do was basically infiltrate the drug trade. And we were going in and getting rid of their poppy plants and opium and trading them those for different agricultural products and really trying to get their agriculture going, really help give them sustaining crops. And the guy we were protecting was a key political figure that was running for office, and he agreed with what we were doing, and he was all about getting rid of the drugs and booming their agriculture. Well, on this day, we had pushed out, and he was essentially on a campaign trail, campaigning for his office, and he had different meetings he had to go to. And on July 20th, we loaded him up in the trucks, and we took him to this meeting. Well, we ended up spending about 6 hours at this meeting, and my job specifically was that of a machine gunner. I was in the turret of my truck, and I was in charge of the rear security on a 50 caliber machine gun. Spent about 6 hours at this meeting that he was at, and after he had spent all day there, he comes back to the truck. We load him back up, and we get ready to head back home. Well, we had gotten our radio checks done, and we were about to head out. And one of my best buds, he was sitting in the back seat. He was our dismount Marine. So basically what that means, if anything were to happen or go awry on our patrol and we had to stop, he'd be the one that got out of the truck, checked it, make sure everything was okay, get back in, everything's good, push back. And what had happened was he had pulled on my leg and said, hey, switch me spots. You'd been up there for the last 6 hours. It's 130 degrees out. I know you're exhausted. Switch me spots. Let me take it on the ride home. I got you. I say, no, I'm good. We're already about to push out. Everything's fine. Just stay there. Let's just get home. And we go back and forth for a little while, and finally he ends up just switch me spots. All right, I concede. We radio it in. We halt the convoy, and we switch spots. The next thing I remember is waking up in Germany. And what had happened was our patrol, our team, had run over a 300-pound bomb that was buried in the ground. Julio, who I'd switched spots with, was killed instantly. And I was left in the backseat of my vehicle, catastrophically wounded. The bottom half of my spine had gone through my stomach. Top half of my spine had gone through my left lung. Lung failure, abdominal wounds, kind of head to toe. I was just broken, completely and utterly broken. I wake up in Germany, and my doctor's trying to reassure me of life. And, he's trying to tell me, we did everything we could just to keep you alive. That was just our goal, was just keeping you alive. And he's like, you have no idea what a task that was. I wake up from my coma and I'm unsure of what is going on. I'm still operating in this combat mindset. The last time my eyes were open, I was doing an operation in Afghanistan. Now where am I? And I have these very irrational, at the time though, it seemed very irrational thoughts going through. And finally it comes down to it, and they get my dad on the phone, my platoon commander on the phone, and they reassure me of what had happened, and they tell me, and then they, once I come to the conclusion that this is real, that I'm in a hospital, that I was blown up by a bomb, I have the understanding to be able to say, well, where's everybody else? If I'm in this bad of shape, where's everybody else? And they told me that Julio was killed, and immediately I just wanted to be dead. I wanted nothing more than to just go back to being dead. And I felt directly responsible for the death of one of my greatest friends. And I felt like I had just killed my best friend. I didn't know how to live with that. I didn't know how to come back to life after experiencing that. It made my physical injuries look like a cakewalk in comparison to what I was dealing with emotionally.
I can't imagine what it would be like to lose someone that you care so deeply about, and then at the same time have that what seems to be a burden upon burden in carrying something where you actually begin to almost blame yourself, which, I think that we probably have all met people who've gone through circumstances they would have never planned for and situations they'd never hoped for. They find themselves in things that they didn't do, and yet they find themselves also carrying a deep amount of guilt for something they couldn't control, but yet they feel that they're responsible for. That's something that you end up carrying and have to work through for a tremendous amount of time. So you've got this physical pain, 14 surgeries, I believe. You've got emotional pain. You're really in the middle of a spiritual battle. What now? And walk us through what that started to look like.
Yeah, so I started making this pretty substantial and miraculous physical recovery. And it seemed that the more strides I took physically towards recovery, the more steps backwards I took emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Spiritually, especially because I had blamed God at this point in my life for everything. I grew up with this knowledge of Jesus. I grew up with this biblical blueprint of God, and I knew the Bible class info of who Jesus was, but the community in which I was raised was rule orientated, and it's follow these rules, and the way in which you follow these rules determines what kind of Christian you are. And that's what I understood, and I was unaware of the relationship side of Christianity. All I knew was the rules side of Christianity. So when all this stuff started happening to me, and I come back from war injured physically, I also came back from war injured emotionally and mentally, because in war you truly see this ultimate depravity of mankind. And you know what I'm saying? You witness firsthand fathers that are supposed to be loving their children, and you witness these fathers willing to send their kids off to terrorist camps, willing to strap a bomb to their 9-year-old little boy and say, hey, go walk that way, willing to sell their daughters off for whatever. And you get this really perverted idea of love. And you see this ultimate depravity of mankind, and then you have people that just want nothing more than for you to just be dead and kill you. And so going through all this and going through war and seeing death and experiencing death and experiencing this thing called war, I came to the conclusion that A, this God that I once knew is just fake, and that there's really no God. Or B, there is a God, and I just want nothing to do with him. And there's no such thing as this loving, all-powerful, just God. I just don't believe in it. Can't happen. And so when I had this knowledge previously going into it, and now coming back injured, and I just thought there's no such thing. There can't be a God. And I want absolutely nothing to do with him. How could he do this to me? I was the only Christian, that was the point. How could he let this happen to me? Why me? What's going on? And I blame God for everything. And in hindsight, there's so much clarity in hindsight, and I'm able to see God's hand in my life at each and every one of these turns. And one of the biggest points that God really intervened and gave me exactly what I needed was the moment that He introduced me to my wife. And I was in a hospital in Richmond, Virginia, the spinal polytrauma unit. And I get this message one day from this girl on Facebook, and she says, "Hey, my name's Amy. I'm a friend of Barry. Barry was my best friend." And she says, "I've been keeping up with your story. Barry's been keeping me informed on what's going on. We're friends on Facebook. I kind of see. Hey, I just want to let you know I'm praying for you, I'm thinking about you. If you ever need anything, just please don't hesitate to ask. I live about an hour away from the hospital. If you ever need anything, just let me know." What a sweet person. That is so nice of you. Thank you. I was nothing near rational. I was doped up on quite a few painkillers. My mind was not all there, and so I responded in a less than rational manner. And I wrote her back from the sweet message she just sent me, and I wrote her back one sentence, and I said, "Hey, so are you single?" And she writes me back, and she says, "Yeah, I'm single." And I said, "Great. Well, how about you come visit me Friday?" She's just like, "Wait, hold on a second. What?" I said, "You said if I ever need anything, let me know." I said, "I need you to come visit me Friday, so come visit me Friday." We went back and forth for a little while, but I ended up, convincing her to come visit me Friday. And she did, and she walked into my hospital room, and she just absolutely glowed. And she was holding this giant poster board full of Bible verses and encouraging notes and letters. And immediately in my head, I go, "Oh no, she loves Jesus. This is not going to go well." And we dated for 2 months, and then I got orders to go back to California, and said, "Amy, we've been dating for 2 months. This is going really well. How about you move to California with me?" Realistically, I was terrified of moving by myself. And for the last 2 months, I had this woman that genuinely wanted to care for me and be with me. And I was terrified of losing that. And she said, "Moving to California is a big deal. It's not really a decision I make without a ring on my finger. When there's a problem, here's a solution. You want a ring on your finger? Fine, I'll put a ring on your finger." So I go and get a ring, ask her to marry me. She says yes, and we get married and move out to California, excited for this new chapter in life. And I absolutely destroyed this woman. I was going from, I have to relearn a new body. I'm just discovering this thing called post-traumatic stress disorder. I have no idea how to deal with this or what it even means or how to manage it. I'd never been a steady relationship kind of guy. And not only do I have to do a relationship, but I have to do a marriage relationship. I have to figure out how to be a new Marine. I have to figure out how to be a new man. And now I have to figure out how to be a husband all at once. It's a lot. Just figuring out how to be a husband on its own. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of work. It takes work to be a husband and be a man of a house. That's a lot. That was not something I was prepared for, nor do I think it was even something that I was really even planning for. So we moved out to California, and it was not long before I became addicted to my painkillers, and I started abusing my medications. And I went down a very dark path of substance abuse, of self-harm. And finally, after about a year of going down this road of self-sabotage, Amy finally approached me and said, "Hey, I think you have a problem. I think you need to get help. And I think your meds are the root cause of what's going on." And she said, I think you need to get off these, or at least taper them down and do less." And I came back with her with hate. And I said, "You obviously don't want me to get better." And I justified the amount of pills I was taking. I justified the drugs I was on, and I justified everything. And I said, "Listen, you can either be a part of this or you can get out." And ultimately, the choice came down to me, and I could choose my drugs or I could choose my family. And I chose my drugs. They meant more to me. And went through about a year and a half. I gave my wife divorce papers. I said, get out of my life. I said, you have been nothing but a burden to me this whole time. I said, do yourself a favor and just leave. Here you go. I'll make it easy on you. You can have whatever you want. Just get out of my life. Let me go be free. Did it in the name of freedom. Let me be on my own. And all I wanted to do was be alone and be high. I tried killing myself 3 times and brutally failed every time. And I'd come to the conclusion that I was so worthless that I was incapable of even killing myself. And how worthless do you have to be to not even be able to die? I can't even do that right. I am such an utter failure. And so that drove me deeper and deeper and darker into drug use. And finally came to a point in my life, about a year and a half down the road, where I was met for the first time with transparency and authenticity of a man that truly cared about me and truly cared about seeing me succeed and live. And I had come out of this, and I finally make this decision to get back on a different track in life and get off drugs. And I get sober, and this really dark time in my life, there's finally this little glimmer of light. And I get sober. I go through 17 days of cold turkey withdrawals, and I come out of this, and I have this encounter with Christ. And all I want to do is talk to my ex-wife about it. Like, Amy, I got to talk. So I get on the phone with her. I said, Amy, hey, I think I just had an encounter with God. I got to talk to you about it. She said, great, talk to me about it. I say, okay. Yeah, I want to talk about it in person, though. Like, let's meet up. Talk to me. I got to talk to you about this. She said, no, just talk to me about it on the phone. I said, Amy, I can't talk about this on the phone. I need to see you. I need to see your face. I need to talk to you. I need to get all this out. I need to say it to you. Finally, it comes out that she had moved away from California. I was sending quite threatening messages to her. I was very violent and unpredictable, and my wife was terrified of me. And so she moved to Michigan, and finally it comes out she had moved to Michigan, and I decided that I was going to buy a ticket and go to Michigan in the middle of December and brave the winter, and I need to see her. I need to talk to her about this. And we end up meeting up in Michigan and tell her that I'm off my drugs. I got off everything. Said I'm 100%. Like, I don't take anything anymore. I don't even take pills to sleep. I took everything I had and flushed down the toilet and haven't touched them since. And I told her about this encounter with God, and Amy and I started talking again, and the thing is what I did is I reverted back to this form of Christianity that I once knew. And I wanted this God of intervention as opposed to this God of transformation. And I wanted God to get me out of this predicament that I was in, but then I just wanted him to leave me alone. God, I need you right now. I'm going to use you. I'm going to pray right now to petition you to do this. Just get me out of this thing. Great, you did. Thank you. Now can you please get off my back? Will you leave me alone? I got the rest. I just needed your help with that little thing. Let me do the rest. And I went back, and I knew for me to have a relationship with my wife again, that I needed to be this man of God. That's what she needed. And I knew that. And if Marines and veterans in general are really good at one thing, it's this idea of, it's this tactic of cover and concealment. This ability to, with 3 shades of paint, go from man to warrior with this camouflage. And I was very good personally at putting on a mask and being a fake person. I could go to church, I could be involved, and I could make people think everything was okay. I could make people think my marriage was great. And Amy and I get back together, and I kind of put on this false front of everything's better now. Let's I want this back. And so we're involved in church, and we're going through life, and she gets pregnant with my son, Brixton. And 2 months after my son is born, I come home, and she's packing everything up, and her and Brixton are leaving. So what are you doing? You can't leave. I said, look at everything we have been through. And she said, I know, but she said, nothing's changed. You're bringing it right back to where we were. She said, you're not real. She said, everything you are doing is fake. She said, you are a liar. You are a fake. You're a hypocrite. She said, you need help and you need God. She said, until you have both of those things in your life, I can't allow my son to be around you. She said, you are not what he needs in his life. And to me, that absolutely broke my heart, because that was this moment of, I knew this was going to happen. You know, I always knew that somehow I was going to fail my son. I have failed at everything in my life, and these attacks, these lies start infiltrating my head again. I'm just getting filled to the brim with just these lies. And Amy and Brixton leave, and I go to my car and I sit under this overpass, and I stick my gun in my mouth, and I'm finally ready to end it. And I open up my phone, and I end up getting an email from this place called Mighty Oaks. And Mighty Oaks Warrior Programs is a intensive program operated by combat veterans, and it's for combat veterans. And what it is, it's a re-identification. It's a repurposing tool. It's 6 days going over a blueprint of manhood. You know, many, I will venture to say, of veterans, the majority of veterans come out of their military service and they identify themselves with what they have been through or what they have done. What makes them a man is, you know, their combat deployments, their rank, what they have accomplished, their duties, all this kind of stuff goes into their identification. And I understand it, because when I got out of the Marines, I felt like I just lost everything. I lost everything about who I was. And what Mighty Oaks does is they bring us to this ranch, and they have authentic and transparent men, you know, sit down and come beside us and be like, listen, this is what being a man is about. This is how Christ came into my life and radically changed me. And I had this moment where I realized that I was done doing life on my own. And I realized that I had one option. And everything I had learned the last 6 years of my life was never quit, never surrender. And I came to this moment in my life where I realized that in order for me to go on with this life and be the man that I'm supposed to be, I have to get rid of this no surrender attitude and fall on my knees and give everything to Christ and say, God, I am done. I am done fighting you on this. I am done doing this on my own. I cannot do this without you. And for a long time, I'd always told myself, you know, Brad, even if you want to become a Christian, even if you want to do this Jesus thing, you are far too broken. You are far too burdened. You are too dirty. You are too damaged to do anything for Christ. You don't have any qualifications to be a Christian person. And I am so grateful that I serve a God and I have a creator that is willing to reach down into the gutter and grab the tattooed drug addict and pull him out and say, son, just come home. Just come home. And there's this picture of this prodigal son running to his father, and his father just standing there with arms open and saying, just come home. The party has started. All I want, all I need is just come home. Be my son. And I was met with this relentless love, and I was saved by this radical grace, and entered into this brotherhood, this new family, this bond that I was able to now experience and take home to my family. And the reason I can love my wife so passionately, and the reason that I can love my son so relentlessly, is because I understand this relentless love that I have been given, and I have never felt before until I understood and I entered into this relationship with my Father.
Well, that's incredible to hear and to be reminded today of God's radical grace. It's encouraging to see how now you can see how God's radical grace has intervened on so many occasions so that it would lead ultimately to your transformation. And I'm grateful that God's transform your life, and he's continuing to transform your life as you grow into not only be the man that God's called you to be, but also to see his purpose throughout the world. And I know that your testimony and your life story and even the example of you and your wife's marriage will continue to encourage many, many people.
Absolutely.
Not only across the nation, but hopefully across the world. And so we're grateful for that, grateful for the work that you're doing with Mighty Oaks. And we thank you that you're sharing your story with us today, as it hopefully will help others find joy, and no matter what kind of circumstance they face, as they even listen to your story today. So thanks for sharing.
Absolutely.
About God's
Thank you for
radical
having me out
grace.
here.
You can pick up Brad's book, Life After Death. It's a great read as an encouragement to you. And you can connect to the website for mightyoaksprograms.org. We have a lot of combat vets that'll be listening to this. What would be kind of a final piece of advice if there's someone who's listening who's been in the path and the shoes that you've been in? What would be your kind of final encouragement to them?
That there is hope, and that I used to think that seeking help was weakness, and I was always told that going and talking about your feelings and being emotional and being transparent is weakness, and we don't do that, especially combat vets. We don't talk about this stuff. We don't do it. We just deal with it, and it is what it is. But it takes so much strength to be vulnerable. It takes so much strength and power to stand up for your family and fight for your marriage and fight for your kids and fight for your wife. And it takes courage and bravery to do these things and to man up and say, listen, this is where I'm headed and this is where I need to go. And you start talking about strength, courage, power, all this stuff. I mean, that defines these veterans, and that is what they are. There's no weakness in any of that. And, they always say this thing called post-traumatic stress disorder. It labels us as damaged goods. And the doctors will be the first to tell you that this is not something that you can recover from. All we can do is give you medications to cope with this. And the thing is there is hope beyond post-traumatic stress. Mm-hmm. It is a natural thing that our body encounters. And there's hope to overcoming this. And the hope comes with Christ in this relationship. And do I still have my days? And do I still struggle with certain things? Yes, I do. But I am able to now realize them for what they are, and to see the hope and to encounter this peace of my loving Father through these situations.
Brad, we can't thank you enough for sharing your heart today. We look forward to seeing what God's going to continue to do in and through you, and through your book, Life After Death, and how it is ministering to so many. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you're listening and you'd like to connect more with Brad, you can find him on Twitter at Brad C. Fite, F-I-T-E, on Twitter. And you can also find him on Facebook at facebook.com/lifeafterdeathbook. And we are so thankful for Brad's story. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Rejoice podcast. We hope this was encouraging to you. Please feel free to share, give us your feedback. We'd love to connect with you. You can find us on Twitter at Rejoice Podcast. You can also find us on Facebook, facebook.com/Rejoice Podcast. And that's it for us today. We hope you have a good one, and we'll see you next time right here on the Rejoice Podcast.